What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. Week 5, post-game notes. We're going to hang out here for a little bit. I'm going to cover, all the games. We're going to look at the snaps, the routes, and just the overall box scores from the fantasy day yesterday and Thursday night, and get you guys kind of just up in touch with what happened this past weekend. I will say this is going to be a weird week the next couple of weeks for me. I'm going to be out of country coming up here on Wednesday. So tomorrow I will be doing a live stream during the day. I'm not sure what time yet. So we'll get right into this one though, and we'll worry about that stuff later. So Thursday Night Football, man, Mac Jones and the 49ers, they looked as good as they've looked all year offensively here. Mac Jones was dealing. He was just a tank, man. He would not go down. He fought through a lot of injuries. He looked really good. They're kind of holding out the door, or they're holding out hope that Mac can play again this week. It sounds like Brock Purdy's not going to play. So I do think Mac Jones is a strong quarterback 2 super flex option for week 6. You're playing Christian McCaffrey, no issues here. The receivers were interesting. No Ricky Pearsall, no Juwan Jennings, no problem. Kendrick Bourne comes in and has an awesome day. 10 catches on 11 targets, 24 fantasy points. He should be a waiver wire pickup this week if he wasn't last week. And we'll watch those waiver wire reports, or we'll watch the practice reports for Pearsall and Jennings this week. They basically said George Kittle is not playing in week 6. So Tonjes, he looked pretty good. A lot of low yardage stuff, but he's a busy guy with 10 targets. Now, Mac Jones had 50 dropbacks in this game. I don't think we're going to see 50 dropbacks next week, but there's fruit here in this passing game. The 49ers look good throwing the ball, not so good running the ball yet. Christian McCaffrey still doesn't have a rushing touchdown, but he's playing at a fantasy MVP level right now. So big day for Christian McCaffrey on Thursday Night Football. The Rams, nothing really to report here. They tried giving Corum some run early, but he ended up fumbling that pitch, and we didn't see him pretty much the rest of the game. And it led to Kieran Williams, who also had a bad drop and the terrible goal line fumble. But I think heading to Baltimore next week, you're playing Kieran Williams. Matthew Stafford looked as good as ever in this game. Like they were doing whatever they wanted on offense, and it was just the fumbles and the drops that limited the Rams. So Stafford's probably a top 10, top 12 QB at Baltimore in week 6. Puka is a god. Devontae had 11 targets, only caught 5 of them, but he made some big plays as the game went on. Tutu is the number 3 receiver, but he's only like a emergency big play league kind of guy. I'm not really interested in getting Tutu Atwell on my team. And then the tight end room is just a complete committee, not interested for fantasy. So we didn't really learn anything about the Rams, just that, fumbles and a couple bad drops went against the Rams and it ultimately cost them the game. But really fun game. Thursday Night Football, week 5 started out hot. The London game, Minnesota, Cleveland Browns. This one was actually a decent game. Probably the last time we're going to see Carson Wentz start, unless there's something else happening to J.J. McCarthy. But Wentz looked fine in this one. He was really good throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson, who went off 11 targets, 7 catches. Didn't really learn a lot about this one. Jordan Mason was the starter. He fumbled early, and then they replaced him with Xavier Scott, and then Scott fumbled late, and then it all went back to Jordan Mason. So I think the answer at the end is it's still Jordan Mason. They are on bye in week 6, so not much to do with this, but for fantasy, we're going to still care about Jordan Mason, even when Aaron Jones returns. We love Justin Jefferson. What are we going to get when JJ McCarthy comes back? Is Justin Jefferson going to go back to 10 points per game? Who knows? Jordan Addison was benched in the first quarter, ended up having a strong finish to the game on that final drive to get the go-ahead touchdown. But I think he's going to be a wide receiver 3 flex, but I'm going to be nervous to start these guys. Specifically Addison and probably Hawkins. I'm going to be nervous to start those guys when McCarthy returns. And then I did think it was interesting that Jalen Naylor was the number 3 receiver over Adam Thielen. Like Thielen's just done. Naylor looked good. Thielen shouldn't be owned in even in dynasty formats. I think Thielen's done. But Hawkinson's still leading the tight end stuff. This is what we expected here. And honestly, with the Xavier Scott fumble, that opened up a ton of opportunities for Mason in the second half. And he looked good doing it against a good defense. I just wish they would find more ways to get him the ball in space. But the Vikings, we'll see what happens when J.J. McCarthy returns after the bye. The Browns, this was an interesting one. What did we learn here with Dylan Gabriel Gabriel's a good game manager. I thought he managed the game pretty well. The game didn't look too over his head. He was kind of in command and composed for most of this game. This was the Quinshon Judkins breakout game that didn't really happen yet. Like, I think we're going to get a breakout eventually. He had a 50-yard touchdown called back from a holding penalty, but 23 carries, 2 targets, only 5 routes is a little annoying, but like we got a bell cow here that's just going to rack up a ton of carries, and doesn't matter what the game is. They're going to keep running the ball with Judkins. Jerome Ford did get 5 carries and was the passing down back, but he's not really a guy I want to care for fantasy. And then Samson, I want more Samson, but they're just not going to do it because they rely on Ford for those situations. So it's Judkins' backfield. Receivers are a mess. Isaiah Bond had 6 targets. Jerry Jeudy only had 3. I think at this point we're hitting the cancel button on all Browns receivers, even Jeudy. Bond should be added in dynasty leagues, but nothing really to talk about the receivers. They're going to run a lot of routes, and they're just not going to be consistent enough for us in fantasy. It was all the tight ends. You know, they had 13 targets of the 27. Njoku with 8, Fannin with 5. And then I thought this week was interesting because back in week 4, we saw Fannin hop Njoku. This week, Njoku's back on top with the snaps and the routes and the targets. They both score a touchdown. I think these guys are both. I think Njoku's probably back into my top 10, top 12 for rest of season. Fannin's going to be right in that range too. He's a tight end 2 for me. But those are the only 2 receiving options that I like on this team. So it's Judkins for sure. Think about the tight ends. Gabriel, we can maybe think about in Superflex leagues. But overall, I thought this was not a bad rollout against a tough opponent. Houston Texans put the heat on the injured Baltimore Ravens. What did we learn here? The running backs. I know the box score looks really bad for Woody Marks, and I do have to, I'm stupid, 12.1, 2.4 for Marks. Woody Marks ends up leading the day with snaps and routes, which is what we expected. 7 rushing attempts, 11 for Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb gets the big touchdown. That was the difference here. And they just didn't have to rely. This wasn't a close game. So I think the process was correct in starting Woody Marks because we assumed it was not going to be a blowout like it was. I think had it stayed closer, we would have kept getting some good touches for Woody Marks. And he just didn't have any big plays. Only 1 target, 7 carries. He just didn't have any big plays. So I think better days are ahead here. I still think Nick Chubb will be the starter, but this is still a pretty good committee. And what this is telling me is that Woody Marks is their lead back. You know, he leads in snaps and routes. Chubb gets the carries, but I like the opportunities for Woody Marks still. So stay at it with Woody Marks. They have a tough matchup this week after their bye week here in week 6. So we'll talk about the Texans in a little bit later. But the receivers, again, everybody kind of just got some plays. Nico Collins got a touchdown for you. Xavier Hutchinson's the interesting one. He's the guy that's going to run a lot of snaps and routes. So if you want to add him, maybe, but he's going to be inconsistent. He's kind of like a Keon Coleman type, big play outside receiver that's going to run a lot of routes, not earn a lot of high targets. Maybe you can pick him up in Dynasty or something. I thought it was nice to see Jaden Higgins out there with 4 receptions. Christian Kirk had a big play. Jalen Noel caught a touchdown. Just everybody made some plays in this one. And then I do think Dalton Schultz at this point, with Cade Stover out for the year, Schultz has been a steady 4, 5, 6 catches the last few games. And he's a low end tight end 1, but he's making enough plays to be viable. So didn't really learn anything from the Texans. It was good to see them finally perk up and put some points on the board. Stroud just didn't have to do much. He just kind of game managed, and they just picked apart the Ravens. So good game from the Texans offense. I don't even want to talk about Baltimore. I mean, this is bad. We need Lamar back. I don't think Lamar's playing in week 6. I think you can still start Zay Flowers, who made the big play in this one. Henry got the touchdown. They might be going to a different quarterback in week 6. There's a lot to learn here, but everything does not look good for this team. I'm not starting a tight end, not interested in anybody else but Flowers and Henry. Not going to start Snoop Huntley if he starts. We're just gonna wash this away from our memory and hope that Lamar Jackson gets back soon. But they do have a bye week. They could hold him out an extra game or 2, but the Ravens are on thin ice right now. They need wins. Now they're going to host the Rams coming off a tough loss, both a tough loss. Miami Dolphins, what did we learn? Without Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle looked good, man. 9 targets, 6 catches, 23.1 fantasy points, getting some deep stuff, leading the team in snaps and routes, which looks good. He did get hurt in this one. He came back. That was good. He's always going to have something where he always just gets nicked up, it seems. But I think if you have Jalen Waddle, you're pretty happy with what you have. And then if you picked up Darren Waller, you're pretty happy. What I'm frustrated, though, is they just didn't go to him in the second half, which I wanted more points from Darren Waller in the leagues I started him in. But we saw a lot of tight end targets, 5 for Waller, 5 for Hill, 2 for Connor. So maybe the Panthers are just a team to pick on for tight ends. But Waller, at the moment, he's a top 10, top 12 tight end for fantasy. He increased his snaps and his routes significantly in week 5, and I think he's going to continue to grow and just continue to earn more opportunities. So he's a starting tight end in fantasy. Achane, yeah, we know what we got there. Ollie Gordon's still the handcuff backup RB, but overall didn't really learn too much. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is going to be the guy that runs a lot of snaps and routes and just doesn't earn targets like he did in Tennessee, unless they're touchdowns, but we're just not interested in Westbrook-Ikhine. And then Malik Washington, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 4 fantasy points. He's a lesser version of Wan'Dale Robinson, I feel, and we're just never going to feel good with him in our lineup. So I that's why I didn't recommend him on the waiver wire last week, because we kind of know his game. He's just a low volume play, and he might pop off for some big plays and some touchdowns every now and then. But a consistency, it's just not going to be there. So we didn't learn too much about the Dolphins besides Waddle, Darren Waller, stock up. Panthers, Rico Dowdle. Let's just a moment for Rico, man. He's one of my favorite players. We were in on him last year in Dallas, and he came through in a big way. 201 rushing yards, caught a few passes, got the touchdown, 32 fantasy points. Hopefully you guys started him if you grabbed him in this one. We'll see what happens with Chuba Hubbard, but I think at this point, Rico probably earned some more touches in this base offense going forward. ETN did look okay on his touches, so he's a guy that if everything goes to crap with Carolina, maybe we see ETN later in the year, so just file that away. But I thought McMillan looked pretty good. 8 targets, 6 catches, 13 points. You're just going to keep starting him until he scores touchdowns. Legette's the interesting guy. He did catch a touchdown, 2 catches. We kind of know what Legette is. I'm not going to go to the waiver wire and pick up Legette, especially with Jalen Coker probably starting to practice this week. So just leave Legette out there. The tight ends are interesting. Tommy Tremble, Mitchell Evans, James Mitchell. They used all of these guys. Not going to care for fantasy. Maybe when Jatavian Sanders comes back, we'll see. But this is a pretty simple offense. We're going to care about the running backs and McMillan. Bryce Young's maybe a super flex option, but overall, Panthers get the win. Dowdle was the guy. We just got to monitor Chuba Hubbard going forward. So we'll see what happens there. The Raiders, oh my goodness. What are we doing with the Raiders? Brock Bowers is week to week. I think they might hold him out until week 9. Their bye, I think, is week 8. And not going anywhere this year, guys. So Brock Bowers, probably not going to play the next few games. We might see Michael Mayer next week. He'll be on the waiver wire report tomorrow. Jacoby Myers targets are going to be there. 7.2 fantasy points, though. He's a low-end wide receiver 3 flex with some boom potential. I thought Trey Tucker looked fine, 11 fantasy points here. Those 2 guys are going to be the primary targets in this offense going forward, and then we'll see what happens with Michael Mayer when he comes back. But if you need a tight end to cover your butt for the next few games, Mayer could be the option. You're going to keep firing up Ashton Jeanty, who looks good as a receiver. I don't know, man. Geno Smith, I had high expectations for this Raiders offense, but even, before Brock Bowers was injured, we had our doubts because it wasn't looking so good. But right now it's looking pretty bad for the Raiders. The Colts continue to look great. Jonathan Taylor, bunch of rushing touchdowns. Michael Pittman catches 1. Josh Downs had a nice volume day. Adonai Mitchell gets benched basically for Ashton Dulin. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward. And then Tyler Warren he's really good, guys. So you're starting Warren, you're starting Pittman and JT every week. I think Daniel Jones is locked into a super flex quarterback too. And then he's kind of a streaming QB1 option for those leagues if you need one. Downs, I don't have a lot of trust in yet. He's going to continue to be the slot receiver here. He's kind of like a Jaden Reed type where he needs a big touchdown to make your day fully. Don't know if I'm ever going to want to whip him out there, but on bye weeks and things, maybe. But we didn't really learn too much from the Colts, just that I think they are a good team this season. The New York Giants. It was all looking so good. And then the turnovers happened. Jackson Dart kind of looked like a rookie for some of this game. He's still going to get there with his rushing. So he's a fringe QB1, but he's more of a super flex option, I feel. Scatabo led the team in carries, had nice targets and receptions here, so that was good. He'll continue to be a running back 2 here, but I do have concerns, especially this week against Philadelphia on a short week. Singletary was the RB2, but we're going to see Tyrone Tracy maybe back next week. So file that away. That could take some steam off Scattaboo. Wan'Dale Robinson out there for all the snaps and the routes. 7 targets, 5 catches, 8.2 points. So maybe bigger days are ahead for Wan'Dale. Darius Slayton did get hurt in this one. And we're probably never going to care about Darius Slayton. Consistency is a big thing with him. But Theo Johnson, man, 7 targets, 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's where the ball's going. He should be picked up if you need a tight end. So what did we learn here? I think Wan'Dale is just going to continue to do what he's always done, be a high volume, low yardage player. But Theo Johnson's development is something that I do care about. And it does look like Dart likes the tight ends. He threw 11 targets to tight ends. But overall, he got a lot of passing attempts in this one, but we did see some rookie mistakes. The Saints look good. They kind of had a fun day. Rashid Shaheed, man, I think at this point, Rashid Shaheed's earned a top, wide receiver 3, top 36 ranking for me. He's been around 8 to 10 fantasy points every game, and he finally hit the big play up to 21 fantasy points. We know he's locked in as the number 2 receiver, and I think at this point, if you have Shaheed, you probably just got to start him every week and hope that he gets those 8 to 10 points as a floor. Olave, floor game, but leads with 10 targets, 7 catches. You'll take that if you got Chris Olave. The real thing here is Alvin Kamara losing opportunities to Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller led this game with rushing attempts with 10. He had a target as well. Maybe there's a changing of the guard here. Kamara, still 6 targets, 4 catches, 8 carries, but seeing a little bit more Kendre Miller right now. And they finally got their win, but if the season starts to get out of hand, maybe we see more Kendre Miller as the season goes on. So I like Kendre as a pickup this week. Tight ends are completely stupid. Taysom Hill's out there getting carries, throwing passes. Juwan Johnson's out there running routes, but not getting targets now, which is frustrating, especially with Moreau back, with Taysom Hill back. I think Juwan Johnson could be dropped. We're just never going to feel confident with him in our lineups. So this offense is Olave, Shaheed, and Kamara, sprinkles of Miller, and then Spencer Rattler, man, he might be okay in Superflex League. We might see him continue to play games because they showed some fight with Rattler, and I like the overall numbers that I'm seeing from his weapons. All right, Cowboys, Jets. No CD, no problem here. Dak Prescott has a huge day. Touchdowns for Pickens. Did Flournoy catch a touchdown? Or I think he just got a lot of yards. I think Ferguson caught the 2 touchdowns. Ferguson's the tight end. Like, he is the guy right now. He's getting all the volume. He's making big plays. He looks like a breakout fantasy tight end season on our hands here. So congrats if you have Ferguson. You have a top 5, top 3, top 1 tight end right now. Pickens, low volume day, but he gets you there on a touchdown. Flournoy was the breakout today with 8 targets, 6 catches, 18 fantasy points. He also had 2 rushing attempts in this one. We'll see what happens if Clontae Turpin gets back. And then obviously when CeeDee Lamb returns, these guys are probably going to go away. But for maybe one more game, Flournoy could be a guy that you flex out there with the bye weeks here. But Javonte Williams is back. 16 carries, 27 fantasy points. Jaden Blue got a little bit of work, nothing really impressive. This is Javonte Williams' breakout campaign here with the Cowboys. So Dak, Javonte, Pickens, Ferguson, these guys are all in your lineups. Consider Flournoy, but it sounds like CeeDee Lamb's going to be back week 7 at the latest. So don't spend a lot of money on Flournoy if you need a 1-week replacement. Just maybe look elsewhere. But I liked what I saw from the Cowboys. They're continuing to ramp up here. Dak Prescott, man, looking like a nice quarterback option in fantasy. Justin Fields and the Jets, it's just the same thing over and over again. This team's not good. They make a lot of mistakes. They are playing from behind, and Fields racks up fantasy points. Breece Hall looked good in the bell cow workload, 4 catches, 14 rushing attempts, 17.5 points. Isaiah Davis is the clear RB2 who should be picked up. I think in fantasy, we did see Breece Hall get hurt in this game, and I think Isaiah Davis could be the next man up if anything happens. So he's one of the guys that I like on the waiver wire this week. He is a receiving back, but has some rushing upside as well. Garrett Wilson remains the only receiving threat here. But we got to talk about Mason Taylor. He had a breakout game here. 11 targets, 9 receptions, 15.7 fantasy points. Not a huge yardage day for the volume, but he's going to be there underneath, open a lot for Fields. He's been growing in workload each and every week, and I think Mason Taylor can be a low-end tight end one for you if you need him this week. So Fields is in your lineup, Breece is in your lineup, Garrett Wilson's in your lineup, and then consider adding Mason Taylor, consider adding Isaiah Davis. The Jets, man, I don't know what else to say. They're the last team without a win. Broncos pick up a big win here in Philadelphia. What did we learn here? Bo Nix was fine. Took him a little while to get going, but he ended up having a nice fantasy day. J.K. Dobbins is the clear lead back here. But now they're adding Tyler Beatty, which is frustrating for RJ Harvey owners and for J.K. Dobbins owners. Luckily, Dobbins got there with the volume, 20 carries, a reception. He did get a touchdown, I believe, in this one. But for now, like RJ Harvey is not startable as long as Beatty is getting touches. He's getting 16 routes, 19 snaps, 2 targets. Beatty's not getting a lot of touches. He's just getting a lot of opportunities on the field, stealing from RJ Harvey. So Harvey is just a handcuff. He did look good on his limited touches. He had 7 touches in this game, but we can't really trust him at the moment. You're trusting Dobbins for sure. You're trusting Sutton for sure, who looked good here. 8 catches, 10 targets, 17.9 fantasy points. And then Franklin continues to be locked in as number 2 receiver. If anyone dropped him, please go pick up Franklin. He did get a 2-point conversion here now that I remember, so I got to add that to his total. But I do still like Franklin. The interesting development here was Marvin Mims. He had 5 targets on the day, had a rushing attempts, but Pat Bryant hopped him with snaps and routes in this one. So something to keep an eye on. We'll see if Pat Bryant continues to stay ahead of Mims. I don't want Mims in redraft. I might be done with Mims in Dynasty even. And then the tight end room is a complete mess. Ingram healthy. He did get 5 targets. He caught a touchdown at the end of the game. Maybe I should be more nicer to Evan Ingram. Maybe he's back on the menu as a tight end 1 option. But overall, didn't really learn a lot about the Broncos. Just Tyler Beatty messing things up at the running back spot. Eagles, what did we learn here? This was a weird one for the Eagles. 45 dropbacks for Jalen Hurts. Devontae Smith, 10 targets. A.J. Brown, 7 targets. A.J. Brown could have had a huge day. They just missed him on a few big plays. But hell of a day for Devonta Smith. I think at this point, Devonta and A.J. Brown are just wide receiver 3 flexes. I mean, if you have these guys, you kind of got to just leave them in and fight through it week to week here. They get the Giants on a short week. And I know Saquon Barkley's banged up. They had a knee thing. He missed practice today. I think he's going to be fine. He's expected to play, but that kind of explains why he only had 6 carries. He made your day with the big touchdown, which was nice as a receiver. But we'll monitor Barkley's status throughout the week. Didn't really learn anything about the Eagles, man. Dallas Goedert continued to being the main guy for snaps and routes. He had 8 targets on the day, 3 catches, 10.9 fantasy points. You can start these guys. It's pretty easy what the Eagles are doing. Oh my goodness. The Tennessee Titans got their first win for fantasy. Tony Pollard remains a volume-based running back too. It took him a while to get there. He had a fumble early in the game, but he ends up with 14 carries, 3 catches, a touchdown. Still a running back too. Tajay Spears was back. He didn't play a ton, 17 snaps, 10 routes, 4 rushing attempts. Just took a little bit of workload off of Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, usually the only guy to touch the running ball, the ball for the running backs. He's going to lose a little bit of volume, but he's still the lead back here. So start Tony Pollard. Alec Ayomaner leads the way with snaps and routes, but it was Calvin Ridley with 10 targets on the day, making big plays, 5 catches, 18 fantasy points. He was making field flipping big plays finally for the Titans, which was good to see. So maybe he's back on the menu here. And then the tight end development, Gunnar Helm hops Okonkwo for snaps. Okonkwo is still out there for the routes, but now we're seeing more Gunnar Helm. And both tight ends caught 4 passes. Both guys looked good. But I just think for fantasy, we're just not going to be able to rely on these guys, even though it did look good. I think it's Pollard. I think maybe Ridley's back on the menu. Ayomaner remains a nice stash, but for now, he's not in my lineup. And then Cam Ward, still need to get some fantasy points on there before we trust him. Arizona Cardinals, the backs. Michael Carter won. Michael Carter is the RB1 for the Arizona Cardinals going forward. 39 of the 68 snaps, 18 of the 37 routes. Ends up with 17 carries and 5 targets. Amari DiMercado, no targets. He was primarily the third down passing back. And at that point, he did get 3 carries, and he had obviously had the bad play where he fumbled it into the end zone on his big touchdown run. So it could have been a better day. He should have had 12 whatever fantasy points. But Maybe we see more Michael Carter. Maybe we see more Bam Knight, who had 11 snaps, 5 routes, 4 carries, caught a pass, got a touchdown run. He's a decent looking player. But I think if you have Michael Carter, he's a running back 2 in our lineups. If he's going to continue to get the volume here, we like that. He also had 5 targets. He is the RB1 for the Cardinals. You're starting Marvin Harrison still. Don't care about any of the other receivers. Trey McBride, better days ahead. You take your 9.1 fantasy points. And then Kyler Murray, man. I have my issues with Kyler Murray. To me, he's a fringe QB1, super flex QB2, but I'm starting to lose faith in the Arizona Cardinals offense, and their season is starting to get away from them here. Bad loss, the Titans. Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a huge win on the road in Seattle, and Mika Ibuka is a stud. He's a stud. So congrats if you have Ibuka. Can't say enough about him. Baker Mayfield just remains, he's losing Mike Evans. He's losing Bucky Irving. He loses Chris Godwin for parts of the year. Just no problem, man. He's just humming along, making big throws, scoring touchdowns. He's a top 10, top 12 QB. Rachaad White steps in for Bucky Irving. Looked really good. 2 touchdowns, 4 targets, 14 carries. Sean Tucker gets a little bit of work here, but not enough to siphon from Rachaad White's big day. Rachaad White is a starting running back 2. I'm assuming Bucky Irving's out in week 6, so keep firing him up. Godwin, staying healthy. That's the main important thing. Still getting the rust off of him. 4 targets, 3 catches. Not in my fantasy lineup yet, but maybe soon. Sterling Shepard did have a nice day with the 4 catches and a carry. And then it was Cade Otton day. 4 catches, 12 fantasy points. Not going to care for fantasy. Maybe if he puts another one of these games together. But for now, you're starting Ibuka, Rachaad White, and Baker Mayfield. And then the other pieces I'm just going to leave as pieces. Seahawks. Well, huge JSN day. Huge AJ Barner day. He had 2 touchdowns, 7 catches. He might be a guy that gets more work going forward because he kind of had a mini breakout game here. He looked like a game-changing tight end. Kind of like a Jake Ferguson type body. I liked what I saw from Barner. He could be added in waiver wires this week. The running back rotation remains extremely frustrating. Charbonnet is going to be out there for 3rd down, 2-minute drill, passing situations. Walker's going to be the lead back for carries and 1st and 2nd down work. But man, oh man, Walker looks so good on his touches. Charbonnet looks fine, but it's frustrating. Kenneth Walker, to me, remains the better player. Keep starting him, man. He's in these weird timeshares, and he's not scoring touchdowns, but he's still making big plays, getting big chunks of yards. At this point, though, Charbonnet, they're not throwing him the ball enough for me to get excited about, but he's running routes. He's getting goal line carries. He's a running back 2 flex, but keep playing Kenneth Walker. And then Sam Darnold looks pretty nice right now. I think Darnold's on the verge of being a top 12 fantasy QB. At this point, I like this Seahawks offense a ton. Cooper Kupp looked fine, 6 for 8 targets, 12 fantasy points. Torrey Horton looks good in dynasty formats. Fun team here brewing in Seattle. They're going to be competitive even though they lost. Lions, I mean, we didn't really learn anything about the Lions here other than Jameson Williams, man. We got the milk carton out for you, buddy. 1 target here. It's just not happening yet. He's going to ride the bench until we see better days for me. Keep starting Goff, Monty, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Sam Laporta, but for now we got to put the brakes on Jameson Williams. So we didn't really learn anything about the Lions. They continue to look like a good fantasy offense. The Bengals. What did we learn about the Bengals? Jake Browning's going to continue to make a lot of turnovers. They might be switching quarterbacks. We'll see what happens here. I think if you have Chase Brown in full PPR, you're fine. If it's half PPR or standard league, it's not fine. But we'll take the volume day here, even though he does not get yards. You're happy if you have Jamar Chase. He's still not, to me, he's not, in my rest of season rankings, he's probably like wide receiver, 6, 7, something like that. I think T. Higgins didn't have a huge volume day. He did see 7 targets, got there in a touchdown. He's going to remain a guy that can be a wide receiver 3 flex. Andre Yoshivas, I'm not excited about. I'm not going to buy that. And then the tight ends are just completely frustrating. They're going to continue to eat into each other's snaps and routes. So what do we do here with the Bengals? You're going to start Chase Brown as a fringe running back 2 in PPR. You're going to continue to start Jamar Chase, but you got to think about T. Higgins. That's the one thing here. But otherwise, Heading to Green Bay this week, we'll see if Jake Browning gets another start. Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, man. Nice little win here. They upset the Chargers in LA, and we got the Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt breakout game. He finally got there with snaps and routes. Chris Rodriguez was limited here to 15 snaps, 7 routes, 5 carries. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was just making big chunk plays. He was used as a receiver too, which was nice. This might be the final game here to push JCM for me. As you know, I've been wanting to. I've kept saying I want to learn. I want to see this backfield continue to unfold, and I think I'm at the point now where I'm going to say Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is probably a must-start running back too going forward here. Rodriguez can be dropped. He's just a handcuff stash. McNichols is just a PPR back. I don't really care for. Deebo Samuel though continues to look up. He looks reborn. So as long as Terry McLaurin is still not 100%. You're gonna play Deebo every week. McLaurin might be back this week, but I'm still playing Deebo. You can play McLaurin if he comes back. And then, we got to sound the alarm on Zach Ertz. Just not a productive day. Only 1 target today. He might be slowing down here. So it's going to be Deebo, Terry, JCM with Jaden going forward. And we'll see if McCaffrey can keep making plays. I like Luke McCaffrey. He had a big catch in this one. Jalen Lane, the rookie, we'll see about. But I think McCaffrey is the name to keep an eye on here. And then the moment you guys have probably been waiting for here, the Chargers. We have the big injury to Omarion Hampton, who's on IR with the ankle injury. So we're going to be looking at Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal on the waiver wire this week. Now, Haskins was the next man up. Vidal got his workload pretty much when the game was done. But they both had meaningful snaps on that final Herbert drive. I think how it's going to go is Haskins will get the first crack at it, but this is a committee. Like, don't get it twisted. This is going to be a frustrating committee. They're going to use both guys probably pretty evenly. I think Vidal might be the more of the, the third down, change of pace, pass catching back. But if Vidal gets hot in a game, they might just keep feeding him. I don't see Haskins getting hot. Haskins is kind of like your prototypical Gus Edwards, Khalil Herbert bruiser. Like, he's not going to earn volumes as a receiver. He could be a good runner, though, for this team. Kind of like a Gus Edwards, that bruising goal line style back. So I don't really have a take here between Haskins and Vidal. Put a low bid on both and see which one you win. I think for me, though, I'm gonna take Vidal. I think Vidal is the better player, even though Haskins might get the first track. Even though it's only 4 weeks, we should see Hampton back at some point. So don't blow your free agent bucks on these guys. I think we just might see the Chargers throw the ball 40 times a game. Johnston, McConkey, Keenan Allen, these guys are starting receivers in fantasy football the rest of the way. The tight end, Oronde Gadsden, we'll see what happens when Will Dissly comes back, but he's continuing to be out there for routes. They leaned on Conklin a few for targets in this one, but keep an eye on Gadsden. I think he's a dynasty ad. But going forward for the Chargers, I think Herbert and his 3 receivers are must starts in fantasy. The running backs are going to be annoying, but I would put a bid on Vidal. I think that's the one I'm going to go with. And then last night, the Patriots, we got the Stephon Diggs game, man. It was good to see. Stephon Diggs. He did not have 20 receptions. I need to clean these up. I think he had 10 receptions. But either way, Diggs was the big winner here. And you might have a top 10, top 12 fantasy receiver here rest of season in Diggs, because he looked fantastic. And Drake May looked fantastic throwing the ball to him. So congrats if you have Diggs. Booty, Hollins, Douglas, I don't really care. Keep going with Hunter Henry. He made some big catches in this one. He'll have some touchdown spikes every now and then. But the big thing here was Antonio Gibson being lost for the year with the knee injury. Stevenson and TreVeyon Henderson, that gets a little bit better. I think both guys are going to be running back 2 flexes for me. Stevenson is the goal line back, but Henderson still is more talented, but they're going to continue to rely on Stevenson. So the good news is Gibson's out of the way. He's not going to rack. He had 6. It looked like Gibson was going to be the guy before he got injured on that kick return. But better days ahead for Stevenson and Henderson. Stevenson got the touchdowns. Henderson not clicking yet. I think I'm going to maybe give him one more game, but against the Saints this week, if you need someone as a running back too, I think that's fine. This was a floor game for Drake May. Keep firing him up. He's the top 10, top 12 QB, sweet super flex QB2 option. And then Buffalo. Oh, Buffalo. Josh Allen's Josh Allen. This was a bad game from James Cook, who had 15 carries, only 1 target, no catches, no touchdowns. Frustrating output, but the usage was good. Khalil Shakir, he's the only receiver I trust in fantasy. 9 targets, 6 catches. Keon Coleman did have a decent day here, but I just every week I don't know what I'm going to get with him. Josh Palmer made some big plays. Curtis Samuel made some big plays. So they're going to continue to rotate these 4 or 5 receivers here, which is frustrating. So my take is just going to be to start Khalil Shakir in PPR leagues. And then holy smokes, Dalton Kincaid putting it together, man. I think this is his season where we all look back and say, he finally did it. He's finally a top 5, top 10 tight end option. He looked really good last night. So you're starting Kincaid if you have him. You're starting Shakir, James Cook, Josh Allen, and then the rest of the pieces. I think Coleman's still a hold in redraft. He's not a start for me. They'll head to Atlanta on Monday Night Football next week. So we'll get another look at these guys. Maybe that's a Coleman game. I don't know. But there you go. That is the Week 5 post-game notes. And I want to say thank you for hanging out with me tonight. It's Monday night. We got a fun game tonight. I'm excited. Jacksonville, Kansas City. I think the Jags are going to win the game. I think they're an underrated defense. They're going to run the ball and hopefully keep Mahomes off the field. So I'm going to be leaving I'm going to Scotland on Wednesday. So tomorrow's my last day to get some work done for the week. I'm going to have weekly rankings, start sit charts, waiver wire, all that stuff's going to be up on the membership site if you guys are members. But next week, I'm going to be gone from Wednesday of this week to Friday of next week. So I'm not quite sure what my fantasy content is going to look like. Obviously, there's going to be no videos, but I'm going to continue to try and do as much as I can for the website. So tomorrow morning, I have wedding photos tomorrow. It's my honeymoon. So I have wedding photos tomorrow. And then I'm going to try and get a live stream in the morning done. I'll talk waiver wire. I'll cover as much as I can from the news perspective, start sits, that kind of thing. So I just don't know what time it's going to be. It's kind of fluid, but I do plan on putting out one more video before I leave for Scotland. And maybe I do like a YouTube live with my phone kind of thing throughout the week. But I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Let's go Jags and enjoy the game tonight. Good luck, guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Peace.